So, Nalyssa Smith and Caitlin Clark are both members of the Indiana Fever, and Sheryl Swoopes basically implied that she had insider knowledge about the Indiana Fever, and some significant players are just sick of all the outside buzz. They're sick of being members of the Fever and they want to leave. A lot of people thought that she was implying it was Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, and everyone's just looking at a lot of the stuff during, like, just stuff with them, and it's like, well, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark seem to be really good friends. Kelsey Mitchell seems to love playing for the Fever recently, and then people started saying, oh, it's Nalyssa Smith. And I think the reality of the situation is that Sheryl Swoopes is just making stuff up. I think that's the most likely scenario. But I do think with Nalyssa Smith, I think a lot of the reason why she gets kind of the short end of the stick is that, like, look, I don't know how great she's been as a player this season. I think she is a good player. I just don't know for this team how much she contributes to the team winning necessarily. I think, ironically, a lot of games when she has less on the box score, she's actually plays better for the team. But she is a volume scorer on a team who doesn't need a volume scorer. I still think it's best for all parties if she leaves, but this is a good answer. And again, I think one of the reasons as well is obviously Dejanay Carrington does not seem to be much of a fan of Caitlin Clark, who is her girlfriend. And then her brother is, look, her brother is her biggest fan. He talks no different on Twitter than the families of almost every player would talk about their team, their kid, or their siblings and stuff. It's just he has Twitter fingers, which I don't think anything her brother says is really that wrong, but occasionally there are certain situations where it just doesn't look the greatest. It's not the greatest look. But Nalyssa Smith did come out and she was talking about playing in front of a record crowd, and this is what she said.
It's huge. Just this is what we've been hoping for forever. So, it's fun to play in front of these games. Like it never you never get used to it. Just always showing up and playing in front of sold out crowds. And I mean, shout out Caitlin. Shout out Caitlin. We appreciate her for this.
And a lot of people will be like, that was without question not a, well, shout out Caitlin. Like, obviously it's her. Like, that was a laugh being like, yeah, shout out her. Yeah, you never get used to playing in front of full crowds. And that's the big thing where it's like, that's the worst thing where it's like, I think she means it, but how hard it is to say what you think. It's like, man, I think she's just looking down. Like, I think she's just looking down. She had a good game herself. She had 16 points in the game. And I don't know if she's reading or if she's just looking down. The reality of this is that sometimes you read things, sometimes you just look down naturally. And this is somebody that a lot of times I look away from the camera reading. Like, it happens. It happens. We were like, there's a cheat sheet on the table. I don't know what this exactly means, but like, first I'm seeing a player looking more at the stat sheet than she does at the audience. I think that's what it is. I think that's genuinely what it is. She's obviously not reading from something. She's not reading from something. Like, they played in front of 20,000 fans yesterday. She had 16 points in front of 20,000 fans. Like, she probably hasn't had fans like this since college, since she was in Baylor. I'm pretty sure Baylor won, didn't they, when she was there? I think she won. Did she? No, maybe she didn't win in Baylor. I'm not sure. She may or may not have won an NCAA championship in Baylor. Yeah, she did. She won in 2019. So, obviously, there would have been more crowds at that. But, like, it's every single time. It's every single time when she's playing. And I'd say she's happy out. I'd say she is happy out with that. Like, she's obviously won a championship in college. She is now in the playoffs, and she knows the playoffs is going to have 3 full seater stadiums. And look, I think she's going to be excited as well for the fact she gets to play against Nalyssa in a playoff series. So not Nalyssa, Dejanay in a playoff series. And that's the one thing when it comes to Nalyssa Smith. A lot of people are like, oh, she plays terribly versus the Sun. I think she was a little bit nervous the last time against Sun. I thought she played well. I thought she did a good job on Alyssa Thomas. I thought she did a genuinely good job at guarding Alyssa Thomas in that game. And yeah, that's going to be a really, really interesting one. That's going to be a really interesting one to see in that series. But it's good, though, that we're seeing Fever players, like, putting to bed. I think there has been probably issues with the Fever when it came to social media. But I think so many of them happened so early in the season. And the one thing is, I will say, with the social media stuff, it's a lot easier to deal with when things are going well. Like, I think Nalyssa Smith can probably deal with the social media stuff more when she's had a good game or where she believes is a good game than if it's a bad game. Because, like, if you're getting stuff after a good game, you're like, it is what it is. And I think the Fever probably are doing a better job of that than anyone else, of making sure their team can deal with social media. Like, nobody's out there with Twitter fingers on the Fever. Very rare. Nalyssa Smith might occasionally say something, but no one on the Fever's out with Twitter fingers. Like, we see some players on the Sun. Like, we see players from the Sparks, from, heck, the Liberty. I'm trying to think of teams that don't have Twitter fingers. Sydney Colson, so she doesn't count. Sydney Colson's just Sydney Colson. She is a Twitter troll. She is a Twitter troll who happens to be a WNBA player. Like, she'll be one of those, like, she'll be in the media as a Gilbert Arenas type talking head that's there for entertainment more so than anything else when she's done. Sydney Colson is great at what she does. But, like, no one else really in the Aces has bad Twitter fingers. No one on the Lynx has Twitter fingers. No one on the Liberty has Twitter fingers. The Sun, in fairness, Dijonay does. But for the vast majority of the teams near the top, no one on the Storm is out there with Twitter fingers. It is the teams down the bottom. It's a lot of the dysfunctional teams down the bottom that we're seeing a lot of these players on Twitter and being really affected by it. And touch wood that all these players aren't affected by it. Because look, the reality is like, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. Like, players are going to continue. As the league grows, players are going to get hate. They're going to get criticism. It's not even a fraction of the percentage of the hate that NBA players get. And it's always going to happen. So I'm glad that we can see with Nalyssa Smith, like, it doesn't seem to be affecting the locker room. And you can even see with the Fever. Did you guys not see the Fever, everyone being like, oh, the Fever have locker room issues? I'm sorry. There is a 0% chance. Did none of you guys see the freaking Fever going berserk when the bench were cooking? Like, and look at all these players. Sorry if your ears were there. But like, look at these players. Lexi Hull, Leah Boston, Dantas, Nalyssa Smith, Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark. They're all up there dancing. They're dancing and celebrating their teammates. Temi Fagbenle, like, does this look like a team? Does this look like a team with chemistry issues? Like, this is not a team with chemistry issues. They just watched Victoria Saxon nail a three. And they were all delighted with that, celebrating. There's no chemistry issues with this team. I think, obviously, with every team, there's nothing's perfect. There's obviously going to be little things that might annoy people about people. But, like, about others, there might be people that are a little bit annoyed about Christie's sides. But I don't actually think, as far as people are concerned, I think, like, this is a very likable team. This is genuinely a very likable team. And it's good to see Nalyssa Smith, again, making sure that the Sheryl Swoopes thing is just stopped.